You know, there are some stories in business that we all think we know. They're in every textbook, every management seminar. But what if one of the most famous stories about what motivates us is actually, well, a myth? Today, we're going to peel back the layers on the Hawthorne effect and find the real story hiding just underneath the surface.
It's a pretty simple question, right? Put a spotlight on someone and they'll step up their game. And this one idea, it's shaped how we think about management for nearly a century. The thinking goes, just observing people is a powerful tool to get them to be more productive. But as we're about to find out, the truth is a lot more human and frankly, way more interesting.
Okay, so let's dive right in. First, we got to understand the legend, the version of the story that's usually told. This is the one that made it into all the textbooks, the one that gave us that famous effect.
And there it is, the classic definition. It's clean, simple, easy to remember. Basically, the idea is that the very act of watching someone changes how they behave. It suggests that just paying attention to people is enough to make them work harder. It's a neat idea, but it's missing the most important part of the whole story.
So, the real story, it actually kicks off decades later with this one guy who just had a hunch. He felt like the simple explanation couldn't be right. And that brings us to a professor who decided to challenge the legend and actually find the people behind all that data. And this is him, Dr. Alfred A. Bolton. Now, what's so cool about him is that he wasn't just some academic looking at old reports from an ivory tower. He had actually worked for the telephone company, so he knew the world where these studies happened. And he just had this feeling. There had to be more to it. He was determined to find the human story.
And get this, what makes his story so amazing is that he wasn't your typical academic. He started his doctorate at 53. Not because he needed a career change, but because he was just obsessed with this one burning question about what really went down in that famous test room.
And you can just picture it, right? The spark for all of this was lit in a classroom. Dr. Bolton always remembered his professor, Ron Greenwood, putting him on the spot one day. That simple question, Bolton, tell me about the Hawthorne Studies, sent him on a research quest that would last for over a decade and totally flip this famous management story on its head.
So, what did he find when he went looking for answers? Well, he did something that, strangely enough, no one had really thought to do before. He went straight to the source, the women who were right there at the center of the whole experiment.
And this, right here, is why his work is so incredible. He didn't just reanalyze the old, dusty data. No, he did the actual legwork. He tracked down the women who were in the original study decades later and just asked them, hey, what happened? He actually listened to their stories firsthand. And what he found out was that, yeah, productivity went up, but it had almost nothing to do with being watched. The real reasons, they were way more human. For starters, the money. They got a direct financial incentive. They got paid more for producing more. Simple as that. Second, they told him they were treated with kid gloves, made to feel special. They were making good money. And finally, and this might be the biggest piece of the puzzle, they formed this unbelievably strong social bond with each other.
And this wasn't just, being work friends. Dr. Bolton discovered that this little group of women became a real team, like a family. He said they went to parties together, they had sleepovers, they built a real community. They weren't just coworkers anymore. They were friends who had each other's backs.
I mean, think about this for a second. That bond was so powerful that some of these women were still in close contact more than 57 years later. That's not a temporary effect from some experiment. That is a life-changing connection built on real friendship and mutual respect.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here? Dr. Bolton's work doesn't just tear down an old myth. It actually gives us something way more valuable. A really clear difference between two words we tend to mix up all the time.
Bolton laid it out super clearly. On one side, you've got management. He saw that as, the nuts and bolts, just making sure things are running the way they're supposed to. But then, on the other side, you have leadership. And that's totally different. That's about inspiring people, making them want to do better, to move forward. See the difference? One's about the process, but the other, it's all about the people.
All right, so this all leads to the big question, right? After all that digging, what was Dr. Bolton's final word on what really gets people motivated at work, even today?
His advice was so simple, it's almost beautiful. It wasn't some complicated theory or surveillance trick. It was just two things. Step 1, treat your people like decent human beings. And step 2, show an honest, genuine interest in them and the work they're doing.
And what happens when you do that? Well, in his own words, it just will lead to a better work environment and relationship. It's not about watching people, it's about seeing them. It's about creating a place where people feel valued, respected, and connected, just like those women in the test room felt all those years ago.
So, you see, the real lesson of the Hawthorne Studies isn't about observation at all. It's about connection. It's about making people feel like they are part of something special. And that leaves us with one last thing for you to think about. What's one way you can show your team, your colleagues, or your employees that they're special this week?